All right, let's watch this other hog.
At those who haven't gotten vaccinated. That 25% can cause a lot of damage, and they are.
To whom? To the 25%.
It's not true.
No, it's not true.
ICU capabilities are already distraught in this country. We have less ICU capabilities than comparable other OECD nations in this country, even before this pandemic. So no, they're not just dying on their own. These stupid hogs are not dying alone, squealing like little piggies as they try to gasp for breath before they die, okay? That's not how this works, unfortunately. They take up ICU beds, they exhaust the already strained resources, and they kill other people as a consequence of
Yes, that's the fucking
It is
thing.
not about actually achieving more vaccines. It's about shifting blame away from Joe Biden being a failure of president.
No, it's not.
Let's be real about this. Joe Biden is a failed president.
No,
Failed president. Joe Biden's failure to prevent the vaccine mandates and the mask mandates from being promulgated in blue areas and therefore shutting down the economy, his unwillingness to recognize when we have reached the end of the pandemic and it has now just become endemic, his failures there have now necessitated that he take this extremely harsh action that is unlikely to ever be implemented because, frankly, no one is going to comply. So we'll get into the policy of this in just 1 second and why I say that this thing is never going to be implemented on a wide scale, why it is likely to be struck down, why it's almost
It's not going to be struck down. It's constitutional, okay? And there's precedent for this.
unenforceable, even were it not to be struck down. But last night, Joe Biden made the most authoritarian move that I have seen
It's not the most authoritarian move. There's precedent for this.
in the last 10, 15,
doing a
20
good job.
years of American politics. I'm having a hard time pegging it exactly because we've seen authoritarian moves before. Very often, it turns out, Democratic presidents have a bad habit of saying, I don't have the power to do X, and then 5 seconds later, they just do it. So you remember Barack Obama said over and over and over, I don't have the power to simply stop enforcing immigration law, and then he just did it. And you'll remember that Joe Biden said, I don't have the power to issue an eviction moratorium via the Centers for Disease Control, and then he just did it. Well, you'll recall that this administration has over and over and over said they do not have the power to issue any sort of vaccine mandate. Here's Joe Biden back in December of last year saying he didn't agree with the idea of a federal vaccine mandate. This was after the election.
No, I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory nationwide. I'll do everything in my power as the President of the United States to encourage people to do the right thing, and when they do it, demonstrate that it matters.
Okay, so
It's almost like pandemics are a dynamic situation where new variants come about as a consequence of not reaching herd immunity quick enough, and then the unvaccinated create new variants. And that new variant is called Delta, which is a significantly higher viral load and spreads way faster than the vanilla COVID that we know. This is before 670,000 Americans have died thus far when Joe Biden is saying this sort of stuff. And obviously he's capable of changing his fucking mind to the appropriate circumstances and and what they necessitate. The Delta variant has been ripping through the country, so much so that right now, when we do actually have fucking vaccines, there are more than 3 times the number of new COVID cases a fucking week than last year at this exact same time. Of course, there's going to be new restrictions and new protocols when the situation changes. If tomorrow there's a new fucking variant that literally just kills you on sight, is this dumbass going to say, I can't believe that Joe Biden is issuing another lockdown when he said he doesn't want to do another lockdown? It's like, okay. Well, everyone's fucking dying then. And that's psychotic. Of course, they're going to deal with the new variant with the severity that it demands, that it needs. The government has a responsibility to be authoritarian when people are fucking stupid and don't want to protect themselves, such as like drunk driving laws, such as traffic laws, such as numerous other things like OSHA restrictions that require you to fucking wear a hard hat when you're at the construction yard. These are all taking away your seatbelts. These are all taking away your freedoms. Your freedom to not wear a fucking seatbelt. Your freedom to not want to fucking put on a hard hat when you're at a construction. Your freedom to drive drunk. You can't do that because the government is primarily responsible with taking care of you. So when you're too stupid to take care of yourself and you're too much of a fucking hog to recognize that you're putting your life in danger The government is supposed to come in and say, you can't do that, it's illegal. Now, libertarians say that's tyranny, that's the nanny state. We should be smart enough to fucking know this, but we're not. And then we take all of those laws that we've already created for granted. When seatbelts were first made mandatory, libertarians got mad at that too. It's just how it is. Libertarians are too fucking stupid, and no one should take them seriously.
So that was back in December. And then in July, his own press secretary, Jen Psaki, said, don't worry, there's not going to be a federal vaccine mandate. We're not even thinking about that. Liars, liars, liars. Because again, as soon as things got bad, it was time for Joe Biden to shift blame. And again, that's what this
There's not shifting blame.
As things get bad,
It's time for him to what?
yes, when things get bad or worse, yes, the goal of an adequate presidency is to take steps to ensure that there are more vaccinated people. I've been an advocate for vaccinating a larger percentage of the population through mandates for a very long time. He's not shifting the blame from anyone other than the people who are responsible for it.
Perhaps
Shifting rhetoric.
the federal government should step in and issue
They were wrong not to fucking gear up for a vaccine mandate back then because they thought that Americans would be smart enough to want to take the vaccine on their own. And guess what? They were not. Partially because of people like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro was routinely fucking creating vaccine hesitancy creating vaccine hesitancy amongst people that watch him by offering them some kind of fucking out.
mandates, and if not, are you putting the needs of unvaccinated people ahead of the needs of vaccinated people?
Well, I think the question here, one, that's not the role of the federal government. That is the role that institutions, private sector entities, and others may take. That certainly is appropriate.
That literally is not the role of the federal government, says Jen Psaki. Well, until yesterday, at which point the Biden...
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. What is the last part that she said?
Role of the federal government. That is the role that institutions, private sector entities, and others may take. That certainly is appropriate.
That literally is not...
She said that the private sector is supposed to, take these measures. Now, one, I hate this, anti-federalist American attitude that we have, but that's precisely what they're doing. They are forcing the private sector to take the appropriate measures. So Ben Shapiro should be excited about this. It's not a federal mandate. Joe Biden wasn't like, I'm the God King and we're going to do this, Jack. They're saying that OSHA is forcing private corporations to engage in this. Which now there's also still an out for all these pussies that are still terrified that they're going to turn gay when they take the vaccine. Okay?
They should embrace that. Let me tell you, it's great.
Yeah. And that is that you can just get weekly fucking COVID tests. What's up?
And blowjobs quicker than an Uber Eats order. I'm telling you.
At a certain fucking point, you just want to spread COVID. You're arguing for COVID. You're like, I want to spread more COVID. It's my constitutionally protected freedom to be able to spread more COVID. I'm just going to do that. Okay?
Not the role of the federal government, says Jen Psaki. Well, until yesterday, at which point the Biden administration seeking to shift blame away from Afghanistan and focus away from Afghanistan and seeking to shift blame away from the economic stagnation, shifted away from the administration, decided the people you really should hate are your fellow Americans. Those are the people you should hate. The unvaccinated who live next door to you. Those are the people you should hate. Okay,
Dude, no wonder I'm so sorry. No wonder you are so pissed off all the time.
Your neighbor that thinks that, Joe Biden is a demonic pedophile who participated in the January 6th insurrection and got away with it. He doesn't hate you. He definitely doesn't hate you. How dare you hate your fucking neighbor for putting your family at risk by just not getting the fucking vaccine and taking up ICU capabilities? That's so fucked up. I can't believe Joe Biden is making you hate your neighbor that literally fantasizes about murdering you. Fucked up of Joe Biden to do this. We're really not hearing a lot from Ben Shapiro's doctor wife since the pandemic began. And Ben is also vaccinated himself, and he's pro-vaccines. He's talked about how everyone should get vaccinated, but he hates that the government is forcing people to get vaccinated. Surprising that his doctor wife is no longer featured as prominently in his broadcast as she once was.
It is unmoored from scientific reality. First of all, the vaccinated are capable of infecting other people. Second of all, once you're vaccinated, your chances of hospitalization or death are extraordinarily low because, again, the vaccines are incredibly effective.
Yes.
You want to make people hesitant about the vaccine? Keep telling them that even after you're vaccinated, the unvaccinated might infect you and you might die.
The worst part about Ben Shapiro is that, he literally recognizes and also admits in the same conversation that the vaccines are effective. Okay? He's like, yeah, it keeps you out of the hospital. Okay, you fucking idiot. Now you know. Like, that's literally the truth. That's the reason why we want everybody to be fucking vaccinated.
There's a reason that all of the best states in America, in terms of unemployment rate, are red, and all of the worst states in America.
Wait.
Does it have to do with anything? What is he talking
No,
about?
the reason why he's saying this, first of all, he's lying. Yeah, you know what else red states are fucking excelling in? Having the most hospitalized people, dude. Huh? Unemployment doesn't matter? Pointing to low unemployment rates is completely fucking meaningless with respect to like states being more productive or with respect to anything, really. The reason why he's adding that is the same exact fucking argument that Ben Shapiro likes to make when he's talking about America's healthcare. American healthcare is dog shit. With a top-down approach, healthcare in America is like number 37 with respect to the rest of the fucking OECD nations, okay? It's terrible. But the reality is, Ben Shapiro will turn around and say some shit like, oh, well, America's number one in leading medical innovation. We're number one in brain cancer treatments. It's like, okay, that's one fucking fact that you cherry-picked. You cherry-picked that one data point to make it seem as though America's excelling in all matter of all types of fucking healthcare. We don't. We're fucking dog shit at healthcare. He's just lying to you. And the same goes for unemployment. Unemployment in this conversation is completely irrelevant. We're talking about vaccinations and we're talking about protecting people from fucking dying to a disease that they can be protected by just getting vaccinated. Like, oh, well, you know, unemployment rates are lower in red states. So what? It is completely irrelevant. You can't really rank healthcare. It's kind of liberal of you. I fucked your mom, okay?
Oh, not again.
And I ranked her too against all the other chatters' moms. How's that for liberalism?
Not another.
I've been listening to you for a while, and I recently got my mom to start listening. She doesn't normally like politics. It's too complicated for her, but she really enjoys the way you talk and explain stuff. She doesn't agree with you on everything, but appreciates you. Thank you for helping her. Oh, God. Right after I said I fucked your mom. It's not great.
Completely disconnected from the reality of the science, disconnected from the reality of the statistics. And so Joe Biden is now saying, you need to blame your neighbor. Don't blame me for the lockdowns. Don't blame me for the mandates. Blame your neighbor. It's their fault that I'm doing this. Or maybe it's your fault for doing it. Maybe it's your fault for doing it. You can see the blame shifting in real time. It's ugly, and it is un-American. It's un-American to say, I have to take this policy against you because your fellow Americans are doing something bad. So now I'm taking this policy and I'm doing it against all of you.
Dude, he's blaming the unvaccinated for fucking dying and taking up ICU beds. And he's right. Why are you fucking crying about it? You already literally admitted it in the first like 10 seconds where it's like, you know who it hurts? You know who not being vaccinated hurts? The unvaccinated who are dying in hospitals. Okay, so when fucking Joe Biden's like, hey, you're dying in hospitals and that's taking up all of the fucking resources from other people that like need to use the hospitals as well. It's like, I can't believe he's saying that like the people that want to die are dying. And that's wrong. He shouldn't be saying that. It's always like, I've said this already yesterday, but it's like, conservatives are like fucking kids where you tell a kid not to touch the fucking hot pan and the kid's like, shut up, libtard, I'm gonna touch this hot pan regardless. And then, you know, I burned my hand. And then you go, well, I told you not to touch the fucking pan. And then the kid goes, well, I don't care. I'm gonna touch it again, actually. I'm gonna put my face on the pan now because you told me you're making fun of me for hurting myself. Well, it's like, you're doing that. You're doing that to yourself. What the fuck is wrong with you?
And you should hate your neighbor, right? It's the Full Metal Jacket style governance, right? Somebody in your barracks didn't do the proper thing, so now all of you have to do push-ups. And later, you can go over to that guy, and you can put some soap in a bed sheet, and you can beat the living hell out of him. That is Joe Biden's style of governance.
Oh my
it is, in fact, un-American. And it's evidence that he is a failure as both a president and as a decent human being with the kind of power that he's attempting to wield. In 1 second, we'll get to Joe Biden's ridiculous and horrifying speech, frankly, the stuff that he was saying yesterday.
Horrifying.
Oh my God.
Is there a low for Biden? There is no floor. There really is not. I thought that the worst speech that I'd heard was the speech that he gave like last week upon the withdrawal from Afghanistan, where he championed himself and pat himself on the back while hundreds of Americans were still stuck.
Yeah, it's not even a federal vaccine mandate. It's fucking $14,000 fine per employee if the employer doesn't mandate it themselves, which is obviously prohibitively expensive and de facto mandate. Conservatives are screeching over the fucking free market principles. Yep. It's also the most like patchwork American way of dealing with a fucking problem. Instead of just being like, dude, I'm the government, shut the fuck up and get vaccinated. I'm literally going to come to your house with at gunpoint and vaccinate you if you don't. That's what other countries would do if it got to this fucking point.
And I'm not angry at the people who aren't vaccinated. I'm not. Again, I am very pro-vaccine. I've told everybody in my office I think they ought to get the vaccine. Many of them didn't listen. That is their business. That doesn't make me angry because I'm not a tyrant. Joe Biden is a tyrant. So it makes him super angry when people don't listen to him, and the people that it impacts are the people who didn't listen to him.
I don't care about my workplace conditions and what happens to my workers and their families. So Joe Biden, who's the president, should also operate in a similar mentality. Well, guess what? When you're the fucking federal government, you have an additional set of responsibilities, you dumb idiot. And those responsibilities revolve around making sure that our fucking exhausted hospital resources are not being wasted on dumb hogs, including your fucking stupid employees, apparently, who have not gotten vaccinated.
Now, again, this would be one thing if the unvaccinated were actually posing a danger to the people who are vaccinated. They are not.
They literally are, and Ben is personally avoiding that, purposely avoiding that to draw an argument. If you just fucking died quietly, listen, I've said this before and I will repeat it. If you don't want to get vaccinated, put a fucking DNR tattoo on your chest, okay? You don't want to get vaccinated, no ICU for you when you get COVID. Sorry. If you don't get vaccinated, you get in a car crash, you can still get treated. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But if you don't get vaccinated and you're caught with COVID, turn them around and say, hey, Jesus was holding the wheel for you up until this moment. Let Jesus heal you.
But that mixed message was completely elided here because, again, this is not about anything other than Joe Biden is a damned coward who wants to shift the blame for his own failures onto the backs of other Americans.
Failures.
Here he is.
What failures?
Many of us are frustrated.
Yeah, the failure is that like Americans are fucking rugged individualist hogs that like operate on pure spite and selfish entitled attitudes and refuse to take a fucking vaccine because they're also sucked into a pool of misinformation. And Joe Biden's trying to deal with that fucking chaotic situation. That's the issue here. That's what's going on here. For the record, I think early on in the process there were IDs necessary, but I don't believe that they have that anymore.
With the nearly 80 million Americans who are still not vaccinated, even though the vaccine is safe, effective, and free.
Okay, how about the Americans who have natural immunity?
For the 10.
There's studies after studies showing that natural immunity is more durable than vaccine immunity. And yet there are no
that's not true.
There's one study, right?
Wait, first of all, that's inconsistent. Natural immunity is an inconsistent fucking argument because the amount of antibodies that you develop are completely fucking inconsistent. So that is idiotic to just like rely on that. Okay, that's one. Two, those very same studies show that like if you're vaccinated and also have gotten COVID, then you're less likely to fucking get COVID. So natural immunity paired up with double dosage is actually the highest percentage. So even if you're even if you've gotten antibodies because you got COVID early on, you should still get the vaccine. Of course, the other side of the natural immunity argument is that we routinely fail to mention that, like, if you died, then it doesn't matter. You can't be participating in the natural immunity studies because you got COVID and you fucking died. And the whole point of this vaccination process is so that you don't die even if you get COVID. How many booster shots will you have to take? I don't fucking know. I'll take it all. I don't give a shit, dude. Boost me up, motherfucker. All day, every day. Num, 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 num.
provisions in Joe Biden's proposed rule for people who have antibodies, for people who already have natural immunity. None, because this isn't about the science. It's about yelling at people. He continues along these lines. He just kept hammering this over and over. If you're unvaccinated, it's your fault I'm doing this. It's your fault that I'm hurting everybody.
Yes.
Right, exactly. It's not my...
That's the point.
I mean, it kind of is like...
It is your fault. That's why we have to do this. If you would just go do it willingly, we wouldn't have to.
Yeah. Professor J, thank you for the 5 years.
My fault I'm hurting you. It's your fault.
Yes,
that
it is.
I'm hurting you.
It is.
Here's Joe Biden.
Thank you, Joe.
The vast majority of Americans are doing the right thing.
Thank you, Joe.
Nearly 3/4 of the eligible have gotten at least one shot,
Thank you, Joe.
but 1/4 has not gotten any. That's nearly 80 million Americans not vaccinated. And a country as large as ours, that's 25% minority. That 25% can cause a lot of damage, and they are.
To whom? To whom?
To the hospitals.
To the 25%.
No, wrong.
Right here.
Wrong.
Which Joe Biden
To the-
freely admits.
To the 25% and the ICUs that are completely overwhelmed and overburdened. That's who they're causing harm to, Ben. That's the point. That is the whole point.
This is how you know that he's a dishonest, lying sack of...
No, Ben, you are a dishonest sack of shit, okay? Not Big Balls Biden, who's doing the right thing, mandating vaccine, which is completely within his authority and power to do so, as outlined in the Constitution in the Commerce Clause.
This is how you know it. right? Because when he says that they're causing a lot of damage, again, the rule of externalities, right, which is where government very often comes into play, is I can wave my fist around until it hits you in the face. Okay, that is the general rule of externalities. But what Joe Biden is now saying is that he gets to intervene if I wave my fist around and it hits
No, OSHA gets to intervene.
me in the face. If you're unvaccinated, you are not a danger to the vaccinated. You know who knows this? Joe Biden, who said it last night.
I want to emphasize that the vaccines provide very strong protection from severe illness from COVID-19. I know there's a lot of confusion and misinformation, but the world's leading scientists confirm that if you are fully vaccinated, your risk of severe illness from COVID-19 is very low. In fact, based on available data from the summer, only 1 out of every 160,000 fully vaccinated Americans was hospitalized for COVID per day.
So what the hell are you trying to yell at people for?
If you avoid the main issue, then you can craft a narrative where it's like, just let people die, lol. I don't understand. What the fuck's wrong with you, Joe Biden? Like, just let people die. That's precisely why he's not talking about the ICU capabilities, because that fact alone destroys his argument. If someone were to bring that up, then he would turn around and say, well, actually, what about obesity? As though obesity is like a fucking immediate killer and not like a slow and crippling and painful experience that ultimately causes your demise later in life when you die. That's the real conversation. The reason why he's not bringing that up, though, is because he's trying to build a fucking dumbass argument. That's it. Like, he knows it better. He knows it. His wife is a fucking doctor.
I just hate how it's this idea that, look, if we lived in a world where COVID wasn't overwhelming the system and we were able to get people, whoever wanted to get vaccinated could get vaccinated and do as he's suggesting, and it wasn't overwhelming the system, then there would not be a vaccine mandate.
I disagree. I think
You disagree?
Yes, I think the government still has a responsibility.
Well, they have a legal right.
Because it doesn't just end there. You're taking out fucking workers from the workforce. Like, the government is supposed to do everything it fucking can to stop people from, dying for preventable shit. That's the reason why we have fucking seatbelt laws. You know what I mean? That's it. That's it. That's the only reason why we have seatbelt laws. That's the only reason why we have fucking traffic laws. It's not just that, it's overwhelming hospitals, but it also is literally because, one, it causes mutations when there's less vaccinated people, or when there's more unvaccinated people. There's still likelihood to have mutations.
For the vast majority of you who've gotten vaccinated, I understand your anger at those who haven't gotten vaccinated.
Thank you.
I understand the anxiety about getting a breakthrough case.
Well,
but as the science makes clear, if you're fully vaccinated, you're highly protected from severe illness.
True.
Even if you get COVID-19. In fact, recent data indicates there is only 1 confirmed positive case per 5,000 fully vaccinated Americans per day. You're as safe as possible. And we're doing everything we can to keep it that way. Keep it that way. Keep you safe.
Okay, so this old man is telling you that you're safe once you're vaccinated. But then he says this. He says, now you're not safe. So on the one hand, you're safe because you got vaccinated. On the other hand, you're unsafe. Now, let me ask, why is he saying you're unsafe? The reason he's saying you're unsafe is because he wants the lockdowns. He wants the mandates. He wants those things so he can justify his failed economic policies, so he can justify a turn away from your focus on Afghanistan, and so that he can justify you being angry, not at him, but at somebody else. Be mad at anybody, just not Joe Biden. This is the Biden doctrine in a nutshell. Be angry at everybody except for Joe Biden.
God, dude, that was painful. Oh, he's a Weasley little liar, dude.
Still lying to his audience.
Still lying to it.
Liberty means being a big baby and never having to do anything you don't want to do, even if it hurts or kills other people. Google Gaga, said Thomas Jefferson. Do you want to know another thing Thomas Jefferson said?
What? Well,
at the top of the hour, there's a 6-second ad break. Yeah.